Welcome to Shore Perspectives, a community feature of WESR Radio, highlighting the spirit of the shore from those who call it home.
I'm Camesha Handy, and I live in Parksley, Virginia. My earliest memories growing up on the Eastern Shore are numerous. One is the pony penning, which we attended every single year. Hog killing, which we attended every single year. My grandfather raised hogs, and so did my uncle raise hogs. So they, we would all gather together. Whoever was going to have the hog killing, everybody would gather at their house. The children would gather the night before. So we would be in the bedroom, playing, jumping around, yelling, screaming, running. And my grandma is saying, you all better go to bed because we have to get up really early in the morning to get this done. And they would wake us up. I think if I recall, we were up before the sun came up, and they would kill the hogs about 7 or 8 o'clock that morning. You could smell something that smelled like sausage or scrapple cooking in the kitchen. And that's the way it was. And I remember, they would divvy up the meat. And my great grandmother, she would put some of the bacon in her smokehouse. And when it was cured, she would go out and get it and fry it up for us. We didn't have anything to compare it to because we didn't have fast food restaurants. If you ate anything that was outside of the house, you ate it at church, at a neighbor's, or so on the weekends. I grew up in Whitesville because that's where my grandparents lived and my cousins. So on Fridays, my mom would take us to my grandparents' house, and that's where we were on weekends. So there was a place called George Fisher's. There was a place called Miss Luli's. And if we wanted to get something, my granddad might give us some money and say, okay, go and get you something to eat over there. But that was very, very rare. There was a place called Hightowers. The owner's name was Jimmy Hightower. His wife's name was Modi. And they had a swimming pool, and children could swim in that pool for 25 cents. And they also had a little restaurant to the side where they sold hot dogs, hamburgers, shrimp, and French fries. And if we were lucky, we would get money to be able to buy some French fries from one of them. So it was those types of things. But I remember when McDonald's first opened, and you could get a hamburger for, I think it was 33 cents. And my mom used to take us there. When I turned 16, I worked at McDonald's. And I remember about that same time is when Burger King opened. So there was a competition between Burger King and McDonald's, and it was crazy because Burger King had lettuce and tomato, but McDonald's didn't. So, so we had some employees who would go to Burger King and get a sandwich just to get the lettuce and tomato off, and then bring it back over to McDonald's and put it on a quarter pounder. Amazing. And when I worked at McDonald's, we could get a full meal for 50 cents. You paid half price. Real nice. But yeah, back then you ate what was put before you. You didn't question it. I remember my mom one time feeding us cereal for breakfast and giving us evaporated milk. And she told us that we could not move until the cereal was gone. So needless to say, my brother and I sat there almost all day. Happy's Pizza in only at Four Corner Plaza, High's Ice Cream. My mom used to take us there a lot. We had a corner store. They called it Bait and Tackle. The store is still there, but I don't know the people who own it. And I remember my brother and I, when we would, by chance do something and my mom would give us an allowance, we would always ask, can we walk to the store? And she would say, sure. So we walk up there and spend all of our money on penny candy. There's no such thing as penny candy anymore. So at my grandparents' house, all my cousins lived in Whitesville. Like all of them lived in Whitesville. So when we were at my grandma's house, it was nothing for us to get up, eat breakfast, and then go outside to play. And we literally played all day. And we played until my grandmother either called my aunt or my great grandma and said it was time for us to come back. Or we might have had, been lucky enough to be able to stay at my aunt or great grandma's house with my cousins. So that was the fun part. So where we grew up, there was nothing there but houses, like, so there were no children there. But when Rolling Acres was built, that gave us an opportunity to now we don't have to go to Whitesville anymore because the children who live in Rolling Acres go to school with us. So we can either go to Rolling Acres or they can come to our house and play with us. So it kind of changed. Whenever Rolling Acres was built, I cannot remember now. The other thing is when we would go to my great grandma's house after school, we got to watch Popeye. We got to watch Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny. You know, my great grandma would always have something cooked for us when we got back home from school. Where I lived, we did not get cable and we couldn't watch cartoons and things like that until after Rolling Acres came up. So Rolling Acres was a welcome addition to our neighborhood because it allowed us to be able to get cable. I remember, again, growing up, you know, they would have the motorcycle clubs come through in the, you know, at night. All the children were in the house by then, but the motorcycle clubs would come through. You could hear the music from Mr. Fisher's or Miss Luly's place playing. Just being able to run up and down the street and not worry about anybody doing anything to you. Those are really fond memories. Where we lived, the people who lived beside us, their last name was Thorns. Every Christmas, Mr. Thorns and his wife would have the most immaculate Christmas decorations. You could see them from as far as Gargatha. The Owl Motel, when I got married, my bridal party stayed at the Owl Motel. I remember paying my mom asking for $1 worth of gas. We used to go to Miss Accord's in Parksley and we would get $1 worth of gas. You cannot do that now. The lunchbox was a great place to just hang out on Sundays. So many people would be there, you know, just eating and listening to the music and playing pinball. You know, to me, that was fun. I remember I worked at the shirt factory. I worked there for 2 weeks. It's piecework. I did not know what piecework meant. I think we had to be there like at 7:30 in the morning maybe and got off at 5. And when I saw my first check, I'm thinking, isn't it supposed to be more money? And then someone explained to me what piecework was. So I said, okay, I can't do that. I remember working at Whispering Pines at the front desk, a job which I loved and actually did desk. I was a guest services attendant for many, many years. I did that as a part-time job while I was in college. I believe in people. And people say this all the time, but I actually love people. I like getting to know people. I like talking to people. I like finding out different things about people. I think, you know, with my mom being a school teacher, my grandmother being a midwife, my grandfather and my father being part-time morticians, we got to meet a lot of people that we probably would never have met had it not been for, you know, for that experience. The things that we know culturally, hog killing, pony pinning, you know, things that we would not have known culturally, we know. So I've been able to impart a lot of that history and that cultural value into my own children, who they have grasped it and they appreciate it a lot. You know, my mom, my grandparents, my aunts, my cousins, not only did they instill that in us, but I've instilled it in my children. And now my daughter is instilling it into my grandchild, my brother. You know, all of us are what I consider extremely successful people. And we got that from watching the people that we were around all the time. You know, growing up, there were Black businesses in Whitesville. Mr. Hightower, to this day, and I think I will always remember him, you know, his daughters taught us how to swim. You know, that was just something that you just you never expected to learn, I guess, but he had a swimming pool. And my understanding is that's why he bought it, so that he could teach his children how to swim and they could teach the children in the community how to swim. Family is everything. You know, Whitesville was a community of cousins, a community of blood relatives. So, you know, anybody could yell out the door, Camesha, get out of that field. Or Camesha, put those apples back, or get out of that tree. You know, you can't really do that now to people's children, but that's what we had. And that's how, you know, that's how I was raised. I'm happy I was raised that way. I raised my children that way. If someone asks you to do something, then you do it. If you don't like it, you come and you talk to me and let me fix whatever might be broken. I love the fact that when I go to the bank, or if I go anywhere sometimes, and someone will say, well, who are you? And I tell them who I am. They know my mom, they know my grandma. I'm like, wow, okay. I love that part of who I am, that, my grandmother left a legacy. My mom created a legacy for us, and I'm instilling that in my children and my granddaughters. If you have it, share it. Share it. You should never see anyone hungry. And I got that from my great grandmother, because it was a bunch of us grandkids, and we would all converge on her house after school. But like I said, when we came in the door, she had a hot meal on the table. And I'm not talking about hot dogs and hamburgers. I'm talking about fried chicken, something with gravy on it, some homemade bread, mashed potatoes, a green vegetable, every single day. She had that. So I do that now when I cook. If I cook, I make sure that there's enough, because you just never know who might stop by. That family is everything. You might argue, but you're still family. If something happens, you're still family. If somebody needs something, you are still family. Love family, love family, love family.
For Shore Perspectives and WESR Radio, I'm Kelley Gaskell.